we're at this incredible computer history museum with all of the artifacts that show us the progression of this amazing technological revolution that's occurred.
Right.
And no one would question that.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the artifacts, we have the history, the historical statements, but when we move back to origins, and this is your expertise, we have artifacts and we have historical documents, but all of a sudden we have radically different opinions of what those artifacts and that history says.
Radically different. In fact, you're looking really at what are competing paradigms, a term that I first encountered as a 19-year-old art school dropout reading Thomas Kuhn's classic, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, which revolutionized my own understanding of science. And you gain a vision from that book of science as a creative human enterprise where assumptions can't be escaped. And depending on the assumptions that you choose, you can end up with very different narratives. So we've got data, we've got evidence, we've got, in effect, artifacts, but those pieces of evidence are being interpreted in very different ways depending on the assumptions that one makes. So really, science isn't just about the evidence, it's about how you interpret that evidence. So these competing paradigms will put you in very different places depending on which one you're in.
So it comes down to paradigms.
Oh yeah. A paradigm governs really everything that you think about a particular subject. It provides this global framework. So this room, for example, we've got so-called mini computers here, but really they're not mini at all in terms of our current paradigm.
Yeah, today, right?
Yeah, this.
Yeah.
Right? So really, to understand this question of origins, you really need to begin by looking at the governing paradigms, the two major views that we currently have about the history of life and the history of the universe.
And what are those?
On the one hand, we have the conventional paradigm. This is the view that the universe began a long time ago in a very simple state, and by strictly physical processes developed gradually and continuously into all the complexity that we see today. Galaxies, stars, planets, cells, animals, human beings. It's one long continuous story from a very simple beginning to today. That's one view. The second view we can call, let's say, the historical Genesis paradigm. Strikingly different. First of all, you've got recency. Right? This is not happening over a very long time. It's happening relatively recently, and it begins in a state of functionality where it's working already. You've got organisms present, they're doing what they need to do. You've got planets and solar systems already operating, brought into existence, really within a very short span of time, simultaneously. Homo sapiens is present right there, right at the start. So those two views contrast really at every point, and their key features are also very different.
It's not hard to see there's a radical difference between those two in terms of time.
Right.
What else do you see is contrasted here between these two paradigms?
To me, the most striking difference is what kinds of causes are operating. So in the conventional paradigm, it's physics running the show. Physics through chemistry, influencing biochemistry and then biology. All the change that's happening is coming bottom up from fundamental, undirected, mindless physical processes. They're doing everything. In the historical Genesis view, underlying everything is mind, is intellect. A purposeful intelligence is bringing things into existence. That's a profound difference. Another key difference is the actual sequence of events. So in the conventional paradigm, you have a gradual process whereby things are constructed beginning on what came before. So ultimately, really you start with, elementary particles, hydrogen and helium, the heavier elements, galaxies are formed, planets, and so forth, leading eventually to the first cell. It's a continual process of gradual transformation. With the historical Genesis paradigm, you have a transcendent intelligence, God acting in space and time to bring things into existence, in a sense, discontinuously. And that pattern gives you discrete events in space and time that aren't strictly flowing one from the other. So you have the creation, you have the fall, which is a catastrophic event that affects all of the creation in a radical way. So again, you see a striking difference in the narrative that one would tell depending on your starting point. And lastly, and maybe this is the most important, what is the whole of reality? Is it strictly physical? Are we, meat machines that will decay into nothing upon our death, or is there a spiritual dimension to our existence that is eternal, that has eternal value? And really, that final point is the one I think that's most decisive, because it ends up affecting how we treat each other. And science is one thing, but our moral sense, our relationship with God, we can't have a relationship with God if we are strictly physical creatures.